Thank you very much for the opportunity, Dina. And I really appreciate what you do because it's not an easy space to be with. So I'm sure that you are impacting very positively a lot of women. So I really admire what you do.
Who are kicking ass and taking names and doing all sorts of meaningful work to empower other women. So I'm honored to be on your show and just in your world. And I know that the universe, God, whatever you believe in, brought us together.
I love what you're doing. I love the platform. I'm a fan of your social media, and I think you're doing really important work around many things, right? I mean, around domestic abuse, divorce, life changes, and even touching on stories of recovery, etc. I really appreciate the opportunity to be involved with that with you.
Welcome back to the Life Changes Channel podcast. I'm your host, Dina Court, and on today's episode, I bring you two realtors, Robyn, Yack, and Cheryl Koffman, who are specialized in helping people through divorce and separation situations. Now, they are a team that really, truly cares. They do specialize in all the intricacies, the complexities of these type of transactions because it is very different, and they're going to tell us how it's different, why it's important to have someone who specializes in it, and not just your realtor but a whole team of professionals which they have a network of and can hook you up with. So thank you for being here. You have made this podcast consistently a top divorce podcast in Canada. We often rank number one. The magazine that I published, Divorce Magazine Canada and Life Changes Magazine, rank top in the world. We're usually in the top 5. So thank you. You have made it that way. And in this work, I love connecting you with the professionals who are out there, who care and really do want to help. They're very heart-centered. They don't want you to feel alone or stuck or frustrated. Help you get through the stress of this with less drama, less time, and hopefully less expense. And how are you going to connect with these people? Well, I really encourage you to go back and listen to all the podcasts. We're at about 140 or so podcast episodes. Hopefully you can find the answers you need there, as well as in the magazines and our newsletters. We have a blog, we have a YouTube channel where you can watch the videos of all of these wonderful conversations with these caring experts, as well as people who have been there and through this, just like you. I welcome you to check out divorcemagazinecanada.com, and you will be able to find everything there. We actually have events coming up as well. So the ladies that are on the podcast today are going to be coming to you live. You can get on an episode with us where they can be, you can ask them questions, you can meet them, you can talk to them and dig into your own situation if you would like to do that. And if you have questions that come out of this episode, be sure and join us. It's going to be on November the 19th at 12 noon Mountain Time or 2 Eastern. They'll love to meet you and have a conversation through whatever it is that there's a mystery around, how to handle these types of situations. And it's not something you may realize until you're in the thick of it. So if you know this ahead of time and you have these answers and this information, or if there's somebody that you care about that you know is struggling with this, or they're trying to decide what is the best move, then please share this with them. It's an easy link. You just click it and share it, and they'll be able to get this information, and they'll be very appreciative of your caring and the ability to meet these women. Now, they're based in Ontario, but they have an open invitation for you to connect with them and ask questions and guide you through whatever situation it is that you're dealing with. Even if you aren't in Ontario, they have a network of people that they can recommend that can help you in your specific circumstance. So please be sure and click their links in the show notes. Join us on November 19th when you can meet them in person. But first, I encourage you to listen in and learn what they have to share with you today. Welcome to the Life Changes Channel podcast. I'm joined today by two realtors, Cheryl Koffman and Robyn Yack, who are they're in tune with your current change that you are going through. They they're realtors, but they've specialized. They've noticed a very important niche that is often misunderstood, and it does take a unique approach. So they're going to dive into this with me and just tell me what are the differences when you're going through a divorce than just selling your home, in a regular type scenario because you're moving, you want to upsize, downsize, whatever that might be. So, welcome, ladies. I would love
Thank
to
you.
know a little more about you. Tell the audience who you are, but also why you felt that there was a need and it was important to help people going through a divorce in a, you know, as a different experience than the usual transactions.
Okay, so I'll go first if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Robyn Yack, and I'm one part of this partnership, this amazing partnership. So, I mean, I have an executive background. I worked in various different roles. And then about 6 years ago, I was in between jobs, and Cheryl approached me and suggested we take our real estate course together. And so we did that during COVID, and we got our license. And then just like any other realtor, you're starting in your new profession, and there's a million realtors. And just through, so I have a law degree and a business degree, but I'm divorced 20 plus years ago. And through networking and talking to people and sharing with them my story, people suggested to us that, you know, what about speaking to family lawyers? What about, tapping into your soft skills and what you know? And you know what? It hit me. I remember myself being back then 20 years ago, and it was my decision to leave, but you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I there was no roadmap. There's no divorce for dummies, although I really think that there should be. But the thing is, we realized all the differences that are required, and we'll go through them throughout this podcast, that people don't think about. And I wanted to be able to give back and share with people so they didn't have to experience the chaos and the uncertainty and
Mhm.
the scaredness that I felt. And when we started to introduce ourselves as realtors that were specializing in this, I can't tell you how many people said, "Where were you when I was going through this?"
I bet you hear that a lot. I do too, actually. It's like, oh, I sure could have used all these resources
Yeah.
or somewhere to go to find it. So I love to be able to connect people with people like you who have recognized this and experienced it and went, you know what, we can make a difference for others.
And Cheryl has a different background, so
Yeah,
share with.
so I actually came from a teaching background. I taught for many, many years. I actually co-owned some preschools, or what we called kindergarten enrichment programs. And I guess my interest in this came from all of the families that I saw. So I taught young ones, so like around age 4 to 6, and all of the families that were going through divorce and just how it affected the children, all of the issues that were there, who's picking up. Sometimes police would be called because both parents would come pick up, and they would fight about whose day it was to pick up today, or who's getting their child's work, and who's getting the photocopy, who's getting the real copy. Like, I saw so much of it, and I had so many parents like coming to me almost like therapy,
Right.
that it was so natural for me. I am happily married, almost 30 years, but it was very natural for me to like understand and empathize with people going through separation, divorce, and how it affects the whole family,
Right.
not just the parents, but the children too. So I come from it kind of from a different angle, but our two experiences seem to synthesize really well together. And I have degrees in education and psychology, so I sort of bring a different angle to it than Robyn does.
I
So
love
that's
that.
sort of how we got involved in the niche.
It's such a fascinating route, like a path that you have have both taken that have been, it's unique, but it's just a perfect fit.
Yeah. And we've been friends for many, many years. So, being together, partnering together was just natural for us anyways. So it all worked out beautifully, thankfully.
So tell us, now we're all curious, what basically, high level, is the difference between the work that you do as realtors with helping families through divorce situations where they're working with a matrimonial home, or like you mentioned, there may be more than one matrimonial home. What's the difference? How is the approach different?
So I can answer that one, Robyn. So basically, when you're selling your home, as everyone knows who sold a home, it's the most stressful time. You're basically selling your biggest asset, right? Trying to get the most money possible. So you're already high stress when you're selling your home. So
Right.
now we factor in selling the home with two people who don't get along, who no longer want to be together, who aren't necessarily trusting each other, agreeing on anything. So oftentimes as a realtor, this takes special skills. Sometimes we're dealing with another agent. Sometimes there's two agents on the house instead of one. Sometimes we're dealing through lawyers and mediators.
Right.
Sometimes we don't even talk to the clients. Sometimes we only talk through lawyers and mediators. There's all of these rules to teach people what they can and can't do when they're selling their home. You cannot change the locks. You have to let the agents come in and be able to do their work. You have to allow showings. You have to keep the home in good condition during showings. There's so many differences. You can't put a new mortgage on the house or a new line of credit at this time. Like there's so many things that people don't know that they can and can't do. So this is not just like a regular home sale. Sometimes one party's buying out the other party. Sometimes one party refuses to do anything. And we're dealing with all these different scenarios and all of these different third-party professionals, different lawyers, different people involved. So it's definitely a more complicated sale than the regular sale.
And just to piggyback on that, a regular sale, they have the intention of selling, they reach out to a realtor, they put it on the market. Depending on the market, it sells within 30, 60, 90 days, and then it closes shortly thereafter. In a lot of the cases that we deal with, we're dealing with them for years because they need to get a court order. We had one client who her ex-husband disappeared and didn't want to sell the house, but the house was in his name. So it took her 2 years to get a court order to allow her to sell the house without his signature. Sometimes you have abuse and again, you have to get a court order because one party wants to sell the house. And then if there are court orders and it's the seller is not the named seller, you need to have the experience of how to convey that information delicately and at the right time to the potential buyers, because you also don't want to disclose that it's a divorce.
Yes. Oh, complicated, complex, sticky. There's
Complicated, complex.
You definitely need someone who is well versed in this and understands those nuances.
And we understand that people have a tendency, everybody says, I know a realtor, I have a realtor friend, Now, first of all, aside from the fact, forgetting about the specialty, we'll talk about that in a second, but we always tell people in going through this, never use a friend or somebody because one of you undoubtedly will feel that the other is getting unfair or priority treatment.
Right.
And so that there's intrinsic bias. So that's number one. But aside from that, again, as we've explained, there's so many intricacies and differences involved that you really need somebody who specializes in this. And it's just like if you had cancer, you wouldn't go to a GP to treat your cancer diagnosis. you go to a specialist. So why wouldn't you go to a specialist, somebody who's unbiased, to sell your most expensive asset?
Exactly. Now, another thing, I mean, the backgrounds that you've are bringing to this, that you've described to us, are phenomenal. So I can definitely see the benefit of having a team like you two.
Mhm.
But what are the other advantages of having one realtor or two instead of one?
So really, there's no advantage, to be honest. We discourage people from doing it, although they have every right to get two agents if they cannot agree on one person. There's really no advantage to the sellers. So first of all, we have to disclose and work in both parties' best interest. We cannot be biased. That doesn't mean people won't feel like someone's biased, but as a realtor, you have to work in both parties' best interest. So that's number one. Number two, both agents can charge different commissions, so you can end up paying more than you would have paid if you just had one
Right.
realtor. And the other thing is that there's always one realtor that takes lead. Sellers actually have to sign a form that says which brokerage is going to take lead on the sale. So usually one agent really does next to nothing, and the other agent is the one booking the showings, getting the feedback, putting their sign on the lawn, holding the deposit. Only one brokerage does that. So you can have your own agent, but really one is taking a back seat to the other. There's really no advantage, but we always say to people, like Robyn says, find someone unbiased, find someone who, you both feel comfortable with. And if you can't and you need two agents, like we've done co-agent, it's called a co-agency, co-agents. We've done it before. It's not the best, but if that's the only way we can work it out, and we have a couple that really cannot agree on anything, then sometimes that's what we have to do. But do we put two signs on the lawn? Usually not. Do we want people to know you're in a major separation divorce? Probably not. Doesn't work great for your price for your house when people know that you're desperate to sell, right? So, we encourage clients to use one agent if possible.
Now, a question popped into my mind, and we can go down this route deeper later if we want. But there is an epidemic of abuse. We know that. You guys have actually worked closely with Shailene McGinnis as well. We'll talk about your compilation there. And the question that came to mind is, in these situations where you are trying to get a house listed and sold, is there red flags that you pick up on around financial abuse, that type of thing, that you notice when you are discussing trying to get this listed, trying to get them to agree on an agent, through that process? What are some flags that you see from your side?
You want to take that, Robyn?
Well, usually by the time they come to us, they've like those things are already evident, and they're usually disclosed to us. So I'm not sure really that we would be the type of people, the stop where we would see that. But for example, one of the things that we will do, so we recently had somebody approach us who was from domestic violence, and she disclosed that to us right off the bat. It wasn't something that she held back. And she wanted to, they were in the process of getting a divorce. He wanted to sell the house. They were supposed to provide three agents on each side, or one of them, and come to an agreement, but she wanted to buy him out of the house. And one of the things we always do when somebody says that they want to buy their ex-spouse out, is we try and talk to them about the rationale behind that. Very often they think it's in the best interest of the children, and they're thinking more with emotion as opposed to with practicality and understanding when it comes to the children. Yes, of course, moving houses will cause them, some angst, but let's keep in mind that starting fresh might be better off for them. So we talk them through it. But in her particular case, because she had been through so much trauma, she felt that it was better for her that one less move was better for her. So we acknowledged that, and we said to her, you know what, it's all fine and dandy that you want to buy him out of the house, but we're not in the capacity to be able to assess whether that's feasible for you. So, but because of our connections that we have and our team of experts that we work alongside, we suggested that she speak to a financial advisor who specifically does this, assesses, has the specialty to take the court order and assess the spousal support and all of the income and what she has invested to assess first whether she can buy out her share of the house and maintain the expenses. And then we said to her, if that is feasible, then we can connect you with a mortgage broker who specializes in divorce, because they look at things differently and they too can ascertain whether the spousal support can come or not, because sometimes it can and sometimes it can't be brought into your income. So what we provide is a very holistic approach to the whole real estate transaction. A lot of realtors, most realtors, they're in the business of selling your house and getting you from point A to point B and closing the house. Whereas to us, even if we're not necessarily going to be part of the transaction, we are happy to help guide you to the necessary people that you will need along your journey.
I'm happy you mentioned that, Robyn, that there are people out there that are specializing in this, and the importance of working with a team that is aware of all the complexities, all the players that should be involved, and the information that you should consider. I think it's a very great example that you shared, where based on, case by case, what is best for these people. That might be the best is to buy out their spouse. It might be better to try a fresh start and something that they actually can afford. But how are they going to determine that? They're going to need to work with some specialized team members.
Yeah, it's a very complicated thing. And because emotions are so heightened at this time, like Robyn said, we really try and provide a holistic list of third-party professionals that people might need, starting with family lawyers, mediators, divorce coaches, mortgage brokers, financial people, accountants, even movers, like what you're going to need basically to get from point A to point B. And the easiest way to do it with people who actually specialize. All these third-party professionals specialize in separation and divorce. So even the accountants, everyone on our list specializes in that, so that these people really, know their stuff and understand the emotions that they're dealing with, have empathy. It's very important. The other thing we do, which we haven't mentioned yet, is we also sort of work hand in hand with bankruptcy. A lot of people who are getting divorced are also going through bankruptcy. And Robyn and I are quite experienced dealing with bankruptcy lawyers, trustees, and other people who get involved on that end. So we sort of have it's like kind of a mini specialty from our specialty, because we often come across that. We recently just sold a house where we didn't deal with they were going through divorce, and one spouse was also going through bankruptcy. So we were talking to one spouse, and on the other side, we were dealing with the trustee. Never even spoke to the other spouse. So, these are very complicated transactions. And there's a lot of difficult things that can be involved, and a lot of things that take a lot of time. And, a lot of agents put up the sign, sell the house, transaction done. In our case, sometimes, like Robyn said, sometimes our cases can take 2 years. Sometimes we're waiting for a year just to get a court order. The courts are so backed up. And these poor people just want out of their situation, but they have to wait and wait until it's their turn. And Robyn and I are always supportive. We reach out, we're in the background, and when they're ready, we're ready to help them.
Cheryl, I'm
It's not
surprised to.
it's not,
Oh, sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead. It's not
I was
transactional. You were going to say, Robyn.
It's not transactional for us. It's much more relationship and emotional and yeah.
That's amazing. It's not just black and white. You're somebody on piece of paper.
Yeah.
Cheryl, it was interesting that you mentioned how common bankruptcy is. I think
Mhm.
it's very important that the listeners hear that because there's so much shame and guilt and failure tied to that, and it is more common than we realize.
Well, it's interesting because we had
Yeah.
another client reach out to us not long ago, and she reached out to us because she was connected. Somebody, a friend of hers, knew that we were in the divorce realm. And so that was our intent, was to talk to her about selling her house, going through a divorce. And not 2 minutes into our conversation, she started telling us about how her ex-spouse was, was like owed money to CRA, and she never said bankrupt, but it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And we said to her, well, you need to connect to, we have bankruptcy lawyers, you need to get him to connect to this, and because it will affect in the long run the way the house, potentially the sale of the house and the proceeds are divided. And right away our ears peaked up, and we connected her with the people that she needed to be, and with
And listen, there's no judgment. Like, one thing about us, we're extremely empathetic, very nice people, and we don't judge. So, you know, we encourage our clients to be as honest as possible with us. It's all confidential. Nothing goes to the other side. We don't tell the other agents the situation, what's going on. Everything is confidential. And, often like separation, divorce, money issues, right? They all go hand in hand. And that's what we have found. So it's just been very natural that a lot of the cases we've come across, also there's money issues there or bankruptcy there. So again, we help to guide our clients through this because, like you said, it's so emotional and there's some shame involved. And we want people to understand there's no shame and there's solutions, and we have people in place to help. And if it's not us, we'll hook you up with the people that you need to speak to get the help that you need. So, that's the angle that we sort of are coming from. Like Robyn said, it's not just transactional for us. We care a lot about these people, and, we just want them to have the right solution, whether it's selling their house or staying in the house. Doesn't matter. If we
Cheryl,
can
I'm
help.
I'm happy also that you mentioned the confidentiality because I know typically, just from my own observation, that is realtors are in a community. They know each other, they've worked with
Right.
each other, and they will often say, hey, like, can we, let's have some, they'll negotiate a little amongst themselves and share some reasons why they, could maybe gain a little understanding from the other side, or, all done ethically. But when you're talking about this realm, that is not a very good practice. So
Right.
you don't know what little thing you may inadvertently drop that could really trigger
It's
something
really
on the
true
other
that you say
side.
that. That's a really good point. And one of the things we do, we're so particular about not letting people in on information. So, for instance, recently we had a client who's a single woman living alone. Whenever an agent will phone us and say, we'll always say the sellers, they. We never say she, because we don't want people to know that she's alone and we
Right.
don't want people to know that she's single. So we'll
Yes.
always say they, the sellers. We don't, we
Ah,
really, really protect our client's best interest. And, we know like a single woman who's been abused is very nervous to be in the home, very nervous to have agents and strangers walking through their house. So, we're really careful about things like that. When we set up showings, giving them notice, if they're not comfortable, let them leave the house or sit in their car with
Yeah.
the doors locked if they're not comfortable. Like, we understand it's a different mindset than, husband and wife sitting in a house getting it or walking out having a showing. It's a different mindset of, and especially someone who's gone through domestic violence, they don't trust, they're
Hmm.
nervous. It's very psychological as well, and that's sort of some of the things that we deal with our clients.
I'm so happy to hear that. I keep saying that, but I've been there and it's
Yeah,
very unnerving. It's very unsettling to
very,
know that people have access to your house, even if it's an
very.
agent that you feel you can trust, or they're showing people and they're in your
Mhm.
space, and it's more vulnerable than um, if you are, like you say, as a couple selling it, or there hasn't been abuse, or there isn't a divorce. You don't know
Right.
um, how that could be.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the splitting of assets and, what you've seen with the work that you're doing? And also, is there any difference between common law versus, this traditional marriage?
So I can answer the one about common law. Yes, there is, just to put a point on it. So in a traditional marriage, the matrimonial home, at least in Ontario, is considered uh, an asset that is split between both parties. Even if one person's name is on title, there's a space in the agreement of purchase and sale for spousal consent. So your spouse has to sign and consent to sell the house, and the proceeds would get split, 50-50, unless you have like a prenup or something that would make that different. In common law, unfortunately, you don't have those same rights. So, if your partner purchased the house, when that house is sold, your partner gets the money for that house, even if you've been living together for 10 years. A lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, we've been together for 3+ years or 5+ years, so we split the asset. Actually, that's not true. If someone inherited the house, let's say from a parent, and their name's on title and they go to sell, that money goes to them. Now, you can hire a lawyer and try to fight that if you've put money into the house or whatever, but the rights between common law and married are very, very different. And we always recommend, if you're going through that situation, talk to a lawyer or somebody to see what your rights are.
And like you mentioned, that's relevant to Ontario, so people should really check provincially with their lawyer and find
Yes.
out, where they stand. And it's a good idea to do that ahead of time and have that prenup, or at least that discussion, and know what your rights are, and don't
Hmm.
just assume.
Exactly.
And we often recommend, like when we hear now we have clients who are in a common law relationship and they're going to purchase a house, we explain to them that everything that Cheryl said, because you never know what's going to happen on the other end. You have all the best intentions,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm now living with a common law partner, and we put an agreement in place so that we are both of the same meeting of the minds. And so we know right now that can change if we either get married, or we can make an amendment to it in a couple of years. But for right now, if something happened, we know how the asset is going to be divided. And we often recommend that these people speak to a lawyer, because it's worth it to put such an agreement in place. It's generally called a cohabitation agreement, and it's very beneficial.
But a lot of people just don't realize that they need it. And a lot of people just think that if they're living together over a certain amount of years, that automatically that big asset will get split in half. And it's not the case. So if you're going through that and you live common law, please check with a lawyer and see what your rights are before you do anything else.
What is considered a matrimonial home?
So a matrimonial home is the home that you share as a married couple. It's usually your first place of residence. So, sort of like your home that you live in with your children, or in the city. Sometimes there can be a second matrimonial home. Let's say you have a cottage and you live there 6 months of the year, and you live in your house in the city 6 months of the year. That might be considered a matrimonial home as well. So sometimes it's a marital asset. So let's say you have like an Airbnb that you rent out. That would more be considered a marital asset. If you have a cottage that you physically live in half the year, that might be considered a second matrimonial home. And a matrimonial home, again, always requires spousal consent. So one party cannot just sell under the other party unless there's something specific in place, like a court order or something else, like a prenup.
Now, is that the dower's rights, or there's something, even if your name isn't on title, but that's being your primary home, then
Exactly.
there's some
Yeah.
rights
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's talk about the book that you have recently been a part of. There's a compilation that was put out very recently, and I have a copy. I've already given it away. So I think, Robyn, somebody's got a copy. They're going to show us here the Ultimate Divorce Game Plan, and you've contributed to this phenomenal book. And it's a small book. It's easy to digest. You can jump in and find things, your answers. It's not a bunch of fluff. It's very practical information. Tell us about that.
And we collaborated with a variety of different professionals, an accountant, a financial advisor, a mediator, coaches that coach on different aspects, grief, and other aspects. And the purpose of the book was to provide information to mainly women, but there is information that anybody can take from it.
Mhm.
And it can be at any stage. So it could be you're thinking about separation, you're in the early stages, you've already decided on separation or divorce. Because for those of us who have unfortunately been through it, some people it's a quick thing, and for some people, unfortunately, it takes years.
Mhm.
So this can provide you with valuable information at any stage of the divorce process.
Amazing. I like when it's structured that way, because it's very practical, and you can keep referring back at whatever stage you are, and you're like, oh, there was something, now I'm dealing with this, and I remember there was something in the book. I can go back and dig in and find that. Now that is available on Amazon. So check the links in the show notes. Everybody knows the routine. And there's going to be a link to the book and a link to be able to contact Robyn and Cheryl and talk to them about your specific questions. And you can actually join us on November the 19th at 12 noon Mountain or 2 Eastern. The ladies are going to be with us in an online divorce support group, and you can jump in there and actually ask them questions and have a conversation with them and just get to know them better as far as what's relevant to where you are currently stuck, or somebody that you care about is looking for information. So we welcome you to join us for that as well. And again, that event link will be in the show notes. You can also find that information on the website, divorcemagazinecanada.com/events. And is there anything else that you would like to share with us or address, or a final parting thought that you would like to leave with the listeners?
One of the things I would like to share is, even though we are situated in the GTA, so the Greater Toronto Area, for those of you who don't know what the acronym GTA is, we are happy for anybody to reach out to us. We feel that it's necessary. So let's say somebody in your area, Dina, wants to sell their house, they can reach out to us, and we're happy to refer them to a realtor in their area and work alongside that realtor to provide them with our specialization. So if they don't know of anybody that specializes in this area in their geographical region, that shouldn't prevent them from reaching out to us. We'd be happy to connect them with the support they need and work alongside that person.
They're
And
rock
one
stars, I tell
thought-
you.
I was just going to say one final thought for myself is that Rob and I have a little tag phrase, and it says, "We take you from stress to success." So we want people to keep in mind that no matter how overwhelmed and, just how difficult your situation might seem right now, we will get you to the other side. And like Robyn says, if we can't do it ourselves, we'll find someone that we feel can do it for you, or we'll work alongside them to help you get from, like we said, stress to success.
What a phenomenal gift to offer people to walk them through this journey. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here. It's very reassuring to know that there are experts out there like yourselves who've specialized in taking care of people through this stress.
Thanks,
Thank
Dina.
you for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
I hope you found that conversation insightful, encouraging, and also a reminder to all of us that what we see isn't always as it appears. People are going through a lot of things in their lives, and we would want that compassion shared to us, and that is something that we can offer to others without judgment. Instead, be curious and reach out, reach in, figure out a way that you can make someone's day a little better, and it might just start with a smile. I thank you very much for spending your time with me here today, and encourage you to please subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media, check out our events. We have lots of ways that we can help you or someone that you love. Share this with a friend if there's someone that you know could benefit from this. And hey, keep smiling that beautiful smile, because the world really does need your sunshine. It means a lot that you spend this time with us and meet our experts and professionals who can help you through whatever life changes you're facing. Please refer to our terms of service available on our website, lifechangesmag.com. The link is in the show notes. Our disclaimer: Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine and channel, and divorce resource groups are intended to educate and provide quality, credible resource information. The contents should not be used as factual until consultation with the appropriate professionals for any guidance. Divorce Magazine Canada, Life Changes Magazine, and Life Changes channel, as well as the divorce resource groups, do not constitute endorsements for, nor liability for any claims made in the presenting of this information.